Okay, I'm doing another one of my videos here. If anybody happens to tune in, hello. If not, it'll be up here on the VODs, and also gonna send it over to YouTube again. Be really quick, really simple. Uh, it is Call of Duty League playoff weekend, and next weekend is big championship weekend. Something like $6 million in altogether tournament money. Not sure exactly how it's breaking down. I think the winning team gets somewhere between 600,000 and $1 million. Uh, Seems like that's been the number the past couple years leading up until now. Um, and Two topics going into this video are one, uh, gaming on a PC versus a console with a coinciding mouse and keyboard versus controller, and two, a continuation of the lag compensation uh, material from the last video, specifically on ping and frame rates. And off the bat, anything in that video or in this one are not that none of these topics are specifically confined to Call of Duty. Any performance testing, errors, problems are any online gaming environment and are really evident in a first-person shooter game, and any problems and issues have been found in basically any competitive online shooting game. Off the bat, normally the Call of Duty tournaments are held with a pure local area network that is a night and day difference versus playing over the internet. And I guess kind of my point in doing this is that if you take the game seriously at all, and I think that there is so much good content, specifically in Call of Duty, there's so much worthwhile stuff in most of these competitive online shooters that it is really important to know that there are fatal flaws in playing online that would not be there if you were playing it in a serious context with a LAN. And since next to nobody is doing that, that's a big deal. A lot of people take their stats seriously. A lot of people want to be pros. They want to be good. Who doesn't want to be good at something? And you are really, to a large extent, I mean, I'm just going to put it on the line. It's different for different people for a lot of reasons because of their network environment and systems and things. But there's no question that online you may very well just be banging your head into a brick wall. I mean, if you want to play casually, that's fine. But here's the reason for that. That's the content of this video. So in the last video on lag compensation, I have to clarify something. Is that there are certain times in the gaming industry where ping values are not used in the standard computer networking context of a round trip. In any kind of normal computer environment, in an office, network administration, online internet services, when you talk about ping, they're talking about a round trip packet test. And that means that your system sends out a test packet, it hits the server, bounces back to you, and that total round trip time, called the round trip time, or RTT, is the ping, also usually called the latency in the network. And so the real issue with that is that, one, again, try to make this simple. Originally, ping is a sonar military-based term. The ping was an outbound ping. The response back is the echo. And it's been a while since I've looked at it, but normally your commands in what's called an ICMP are a ping and an echo request. The ping's one way and the echo's back. And so the people in the gaming industry who use, and this isn't everyone, the people in the gaming industry who use ping as a one-way value, there's a reason to do that. Because if you're looking at the quality of the connection, you have a difference between your server overhead, which is going to come from your processing, the number of requests coming into it, etc., versus the actual client, which would be you, the person who bought the game in this case, your quality of connection to their servers. And so your overall latency in that context, which would be the two-way round trip ping, would vary in accord with the server load, the number of requests, and things like that, that would add to the latency that does not indicate the quality of your connection to them. And so also when you would use a ping in that context of a one-way value, it makes your numbers look better. But whatever the case, my understanding was that when Modern Warfare first released, that they were using the one-way ping value as in-game ping. And I think that on the PC, that was originally the case. And whenever I put this video up, I'll put a link to the original test that Chris Battle Nonsense, the networking guy, did, where he basically said, well, these values are wrong. And I don't think he was aware that, to my knowledge, they were using the one-way ping value without the echo request. But the numbers that he had gotten back were what was supposed to, his tests were showing something like a 28 millisecond round trip, and they had it listed as like an 8. And if I'm not mistaken, what was happening was that it was an 8 one-way. And he seems to think that was too short, that couldn't have been the value. I don't know, whatever the case. My understanding, I thought that they were using that. But on current testing, when you boot up Modern Warfare and it has a latency value now is what it's listed at in the game. That is apparently the round trip ping, not the one way that has the server overhead and whatever else is involved with it. So just getting that out of the way. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and go into this thing. I have to set up a match here with a timer to show this, a timer and a distance meter. So, again, just from last time, if anybody doesn't know what a millisecond is a 1,000th of a second. 1, 2, 3, 4. 100 milliseconds is 1/10 of a second. Use the same gun here because of the movement speed on it.
Hard point.
Okay.
Capture and defend the hard point. When it moves, you follow.
So, let's see. Where's my meter here? The main thing that I was using last time was the distance that you cover in 1 second, and then dividing that into something to match up to different millisecond delays. All right, where's my hard point? Okay, are we doing it or not? All right. Give me no ammo. I don't, for some reason, see a hard point spawning. And there shouldn't be anything to my knowledge in here to set no ammo. Okay, what are you doing? Try this again.
The day's ours. Report for debrief.
Alright, where are you? Game rules. Okay, how did this get set to spawn ammo mags? Normal. Okay.
Hardpoint.
Okay, great. Here goes.
Control the hardpoints as they are located. We have our first target. Move out.
Okay, get this to right where it counts up. Alright. 28, and need a timer up here. Alright, so starting
Capture the
at
objective.
right at the 27, and go for 1 second. Okay, I've got to correct that a little bit. It was about 7 meters, 6.5, 7 meters last time. So I'm going to go from 21 back to 20. Okay, 21. Back to about 27.5. So roughly speaking, this was the distance covered in 1 second. And then
10 seconds. Get ready to move.
9, 8. There you go. Okay, so this is the critical thing, was this distance right here. And
Get to the hard point. Move.
here is issue 1. This is on the PC versus console. This PlayStation 4 Pro is supposed to be running at 60 frames per second. So, you have a game displaying, giving you a printout of everything on the screen at 60 frames per second. And this could get very complicated, having to do with the firing rates on the guns and stuff. Not even touching that. Plenty of people have that out there. I'm trying to be simple here. You then have a server that is sending you updates about the game state to be printed to the screen at whatever rate. And have 2 issues right off the bat.
Next hard point. Let's go.
One of those issues is that people are constantly saying that if the system cannot display a certain frame rate, like higher than 60, as in up at I think it's like 144 and 240 are the next brackets up, that there's no point in the server sending out updates or even attempting to do that with the game. And that is not necessarily true. Just because your system can't display that high of a frame rate doesn't mean that the game can't keep track of
10
it. It
seconds.
depends
Get
on
ready
what
to move.
the game is written to do. Meaning that if my system could somehow only display 30 frames per second, and I have somebody moving across this window here, and I'm only getting 30 frames of motion across that second, it's like a flip book, like a cartoon flip book. When I go to shoot, if my aim is tracing across a window that I don't exactly have frames for, that doesn't mean that the system can't keep track of that. So it's not as cut and dry as that. Second is that, in other words, if your server was updating at 128 cycles per second, and your system can only print out 30, that doesn't necessarily invalidate the 128 updates per second. It depends on the game and how they're tracking everything. And that all gets into this stuff about extrapolation and interpolation and stuff. But whatever, they just aren't the same thing. And when people say they are, they just don't know what they're talking about.
Stand by to move.
The second thing is that people are constantly trying to say that a certain frame rate, specifically above 60 frames per second, that your eye can't detect it and that it doesn't matter. It's not true at all. It's been tested over and over, and I'm going to link a video where multiple top gaming people, including Shroud, were tested. They went from 60 FPS up through 240, and the amount of targets that they were able to hit doing the exact same thing at 240 was just multifold over. And that's, again, also been tested by the military, which I was mentioning in the last video. And if I remember correctly, it's not that you can discern the individual frames, but you can detect a difference up to an insanely high amount, something like 600 frames per second. So, whatever to all that, basically, in order to keep it simple, one, I'm saying people are stupid, they don't know what they're talking about, and they think they do. I mean, I may be wrong about stuff sometimes, but I do have a general sense of looking into some things. And I don't accept things at face value. So
get to the next one.
This window right here, if that's 1 second, and you're running at 60 frames per second, that means, and again, you have to have a display if you want to actually be able to see this. If your visual display on the screen isn't giving you that 60 frames per second, that doesn't mean that the game isn't tracking it. You just can't see it. Well, most people aren't going to be discerning that anyway. When they're going to shoot, that they aren't saying, oh, my eye can individually see each 60 frames. They're just going to spray and pray to some extent. So just because your display doesn't do it doesn't mean it's not worthwhile. But anyway, in this window right here,
get ready. We're about to move.
If you have ideally, you have a server updating your system at least 60 hertz. You have your system, which would ideally be updating the server at 60 hertz, so that the other players can get your 60 hertz. You have the frames per second at least 60 hertz. Then you're going to have 60 locations along this path of motion. And the original point in this is if you're playing on a console, I know they've been doing these tournaments and stuff for years on the consoles, and they have this big partnership with Sony or whatever, but there's just absolutely no comparison. You're playing at a 30 or 60 hertz frame rate or server cycle is just a
stand by to move.
Incomprehensible disadvantage to a high-powered PC running at 240 frames per second, or a server cycling, which Valorant is right now, to my knowledge, at a continuous, no questions, always on 128 hertz, 128 cycles per second update from the server to the clients. And if you combine a 128 hertz server with a computer that can print out 240 frames per second, you're just so multifold over a console player and your capacity in that game to hit targets, acquire information. I mean, it's just unreal. So,
Get ready. We're about to move.
the definitive thing to know about
get to the next one.
all of that could just be, you know, just some confusing, you know, whatever, is that there were tests that were done on Battlefield 4 when it released. It came out with an atrocious 10 hertz server update cycle. That was coming out of the last generation of consoles, but moving into the Xbox One and PS4. When that game was tested at 10 hertz, the baseline delay between a person moving and updating to someone else on their screen, between them firing and their bullets actually hitting when they should have been immediately hitting, etc., was 200 milliseconds. It didn't matter what your ping or connection was. You had a delay that turned into at least 200 milliseconds. And as soon as there was a push and they got it to where in your general vicinity in the game, you were getting 30 hertz update cycle, it cut it by nearly a third. It went down to something like 80 milliseconds of baseline delay, player to player. And that was over an extremely good connection at the time that was, I think, something like 28 milliseconds round-trip ping to the server. So simple hertz cycling on the server definitively almost one-to-one reduces your delay and improves the quality of experience in the game. And so Infinite Warfare, to my knowledge, was running at 20 hertz. It was absolutely awful. Black Ops 3 was running at 20 hertz. It wasn't until they went to the dedicated servers with Call of Duty World War II and bumped it up to close to 60 hertz that we got 60 hertz. And this year, I think that this regular multiplayer is running at something like 62 hertz. But, side note, apparently Ground War, last test I've seen done on it, 20 hertz. Absolutely awful. So if you're having a different experience throughout this past year in Ground War, it was apparently running at 20 hertz, which is just awful. And so there again, when it was tested, you had on the 60 hertz, roughly 60 hertz Modern Warfare servers, you had a baseline delay that was at about 50 milliseconds. In Ground War, with the 20 hertz servers, you had a delay between players that was 100 or more milliseconds. So twice. So looking between these two spots at 1 second's travel time and dividing that either into 30 frames or 60 frames, you're going to have a server cycle that coincides with that. Over the past few years, I'll even take it back to Battlefield 4. Over this area right here, you're going to have 10 updates.
Get ready, we're about to move.
That awful Battlefield 4 performance would have been 5 updates from here to here. Or you're going to have 20 updates like Infinite Warfare, which would have given you 10 from here to here. So between here, your enemy would get 10 updates on your position. Or, as of World War II, you would have 60 to coincide with the 60 hertz, 60 frames per second. That would give you 30 from here to here. Again, what was happening with some of those frame rate tests was that if you had a distant object, like someone up here, and they come around a little window of a corner here, they're peeking
10
something.
seconds. Get ready to move.
At certain distances, certain sizes, and certain visibility times, or say moving between certain objects, on a 240 frame display, you had 4, 8 plus times the number of positions that you could shoot the same person. And I can't really show this to someone, but if you had a cartoon comic flip book, and you said, okay, well, this person has to move from here to here. Well, on the 60 frame, they would be like arm up, moving their legs, arm up, moving their legs, arm up, moving their legs, and then they would be over here. On something like a 10 hertz, they're like doink, 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 doink. And you literally cannot hit them at the same locations along the path with the same body parts or animations. There are areas on a lower frame rate that targets become only visible for right at a single frame between objects, where by the time you see them and attempt to shoot, they're gone. And you can see this happen now in Warzone when the frame rate dips. If you have a PC where you can watch the frame rates go up and down, when the frame rate slows down, it's going to be clunk, 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 clunk between positions. Now, it's still a lot of times fast enough that you don't actually see it, but there you go. So, first off, between your PC and your console, you have the completely tested capacity at a higher frame rates and server cycle to keep up with things and have a fractional delay compared to a lower rate system. Second is that mouse and keyboard, I've told people this 100,000 times. If you want a perfect test, get a copy of Counter-Strike Go. It has a firing range with bullseyes that are at all different ranges, and attempt to aim precisely at high speed. Even it doesn't take high speed. Just try to aim precisely at bullseyes, and you will see that a mouse can simply point and click. When you use any controller, the primary thing that comes up is you have a central dead zone right in the middle of where the stick is. And if you take your controller and look at it, and look at your aiming stick, and gently tilt it to any side, you can watch to see when the first response you get back in the game is to motion.
Stand by to move.
Here I am tilting. Now there's where my first response was. Everything's stationary. I'm at this moment pushing the stick, but there's no response. I'm still pushing. I'm pushing. Now finally it's starting to move.
Get to the hard
My
point.
stick is about now 1/5 of the radial distance on a tilt. So of the 90 degrees on that side of the stick, it's tilting 1/5 before I get the initial response, and that's on a very low. That's on a very low dead zone, if any. I have an Astro C40 controller, and there's stuff in the games and in the controller, and I had to play with it to get it to not have drift and still have no dead zone, because when I move it, I want it to move. And that right there, basically, even on the best controllers, is like trying to aim with chopsticks on top of a stick. It's like taking a pair of chopsticks, using them to tilt your stick. That's how inaccurate using any controller stick is versus a mouse. Now, people get good at them, they get a feel for it, but it does not change the fact you can go to virtually any game that has any kind of floating cursor, like Blackout's map, and notice that when you're pushing your stick, it doesn't stop where you want it to. They swerve when you're trying to focus with the sticks. So whatever. First things off the bat, and that's pretty much about it.
Hardpoint secure.
What I wanted to say about console versus PC is that just brief recap. Higher server rates transfer directly up to an exact 1-to-1
10 seconds. Get
with
ready to move.
decreased delay. They've been on horrible console server rates for years. There is no definitive matchup between a display, a graphical frame rate, and a server cycle, even though they're normally mixed together. It depends on how the game handles it. More is better. I mean, as long as your processors and stuff can handle it. This is the kind of window that you're looking at with motions and aiming and targets. And your accuracy on your mouse. I mean, with recoil on a mouse, once you know which direction it drifts, you can just reverse that and just hold it back the exact same direction. Sticks are much harder to try to do that with. Don't know that any of that's necessary with everybody using hacked macros and Chronos Zen push button easy hack, but whatever. So that was that part. The other part is about the delay. And if you try to be simple here, I'll say one complicated thing. When I boot up Battlefield or Plants vs. Zombies, have either a 10 or a 14 millisecond full round trip ping to their servers. When I am in Modern Warfare, it has me listed as a 30 millisecond round trip ping. By 30 millisecond round trip ping, and virtually every test that I'll link and that Battle Nonsense has done, he's not the only person who's tested this stuff, he's just the best at the moment. By all of those tests, normally those are at 25 to 30 milliseconds round trip ping. That's considered a very good ping. And this Call of Duty is at this like 30 round trip, so that's okay. It's not as good as my Plants vs. Zombies or my Battlefield. The 30 millisecond round trip ping means that roughly 15 went to the server. Like I said, you have overhead. If two people are in the game, and again, this is where the state that most of these tests were done in. If two people are in the game and both of them have that 30 round trip, both of them have 15.
Stand by to move.
In a real simplistic sense, when I go to move, it takes 15 milliseconds for my position to update to the server, and then takes 15 to player 2. So pretend player 2 is over here. 15 for me to update to the server, 15 from the server to them, 15 from them back to the server, 15 from the server back to me. Now, I do not know at this point. There are apparently what are called listen servers in this game. The issue with all of this is basically, there may be other stuff I don't know about. It's called server-side authentication, where when I have my system, and part of this was to deal with hacking, and always has been, at least as far as I know. If I have an enemy here on my screen, and I shoot them, my system reads it, says it's a hit, but it has to be double checked by the server to be cleared as a hit. And so it's immediately sent and said, does this match up? Is it clear to go, and call it a hit? and that's the server authentication. When you had peer-to-peer networks, one person's system did the authentication, and apparently that let people hack it on peer-to-peer networks. But whatever. But point being that in order to register the hit, it has to get cleared by a server. If that was not the case, it is possible that you could use
10 seconds. Get ready to move.
Player-to-player relays or a triangulation of them, or whatever role the listen servers have to try to speed up the information process and like get it down possibly lower than your ping to the server or their ping to the server. But here's the point. When Modern Warfare was tested, whatever they may be up to behind the scenes with it, when the time was pretending these barrels here are the server and then another player standing over here, when the time from me to here was 15, from here to there was 15, and back again doubled it at 60, that is during the beta of Modern Warfare, it was not as good. It was up at there was like a 40 millisecond overhead over all that. But by the time the game was out and
next hard point, let's go.
Pound Nonsense tested again, it was pretty much straight that. It was whatever they were doing every time it came out to be, if it was 15, 15, 15, 15, it did come out to be 60. There was it was like consistently exactly that. And that was on that 60 hertz cycling. So, getting back to the ground war thing of it running at the lower rate, with two people having the same ping on that 20 hertz cycle, it turned into 100 round trip. And so here is my point again, and this is also what was in the other thing, but when you see the delay test
next hard point, let's go.
And still pretending this is the server and another player is standing over here. On that ideal 28 round trip ping, 60 player to player, when I move, there's a 60 second delay, a 60 millisecond delay before they get my correct position. So if they were standing right there and they shoot at me, okay, if I'm standing here, they see me,
stand by to move,
and I move to the side. 60 milliseconds later, they are still seeing me standing over here. And if they shoot, they get the hit. The problem with that, looking at it like that, is there is also a delay of their gunfire. When they are standing there and I move over here, and I'm 60 milliseconds to the side, and they begin shooting, as I continue to move, I am going to be 120 milliseconds distance over to the side and still getting hit. And that is on an ideal connection on that, which originally, and I think under higher server volume, was up at 100 just for the basic game, which would, when it was originally in the beta tests, it was 100 to the side,
get ready to move,
and then another 100 to the side before the bullets actually hit. So, keeping that in mind, here I am running, and I may not even see this person's over here, and they see me.
Hard point, let's go.
I'm right here. I move up 100 milliseconds to right here. They now see me at that past position. I don't even see them. and I keep running to right here, another 100 milliseconds. Or if you want to keep true to some of those last tests, 100, a total of 120 instead of 200. But one way or the other, I'm either 120 under the most ideal conditions or 200 over what I think is a more realistic condition. And they're shooting. I'm now getting killed. I am nowhere near where I was. And this is my point. On even a fiber optic connection
10 seconds.
with the
Get ready
most
to move.
ideal connection possible to this server, these servers, my baseline discrepancy here is
Get to the hard point. Move.
60 and 120 before I'm even getting the hits. And these guns, the MP5 gun has, to my knowledge, next to a one-hit sniping rifle or one-hit gun like the Kar 98, for any gun with any kind of more than one hit, the MP5 is, I think, still the lowest time to kill gun for a standard body torso shot in the game. There are plenty of guns with headshots lower than that. It has one of the highest headshot damages. It, to my knowledge, has no difference between body and headshots. So, like, you can take a Striker submachine gun and it will kill quicker than the MP5, but you have to hit headshots or throat shots.
Stand by to move.
But whatever, the MP5 has the lowest body one, to my knowledge. And that's 150 milliseconds. So it is the most popular gun in the game by far for that reason. So if I'm right here and I move 60 milliseconds, they see me and are firing an MP5. And it takes another 60 for the bullets to hit me. That's 120 milliseconds before any damage is coming in. I am nowhere near where I was. And I'm 120 milliseconds in to 150 millisecond death on the absolute best fiber optic internet connection possible. If I did not see them,
Stand by to move.
if I'm trying to run somewhere, or say they were like right here in this corner and I run past the store, I am nowhere near where I was, and I am
Get to the hard point. Move.
effectively just about dead. In Ground War, to my knowledge, to this day, it is a horrible experience. I don't know how these people end up on whatever they're doing, because when I play Ground War, it does exactly what I'm talking about, which was tested to be real. Side note. So much of this gameplay has just, in my opinion, gone to shit this year. It's always potentially gone there. But the thing is, you have people, like, for me, that our goal is to get streaks and not die. You have a scoring system that is not penalizing people for dying, but at the same
10
time
seconds. Get ready to
does
move.
reward streaks and things. People are going in and their main goal is to get on top of the scoreboard, and since they just don't, it doesn't require streaks to do that, and they aren't very good.
Let's go.
They're going in and just, they don't care if they get killed. They're just running around essentially like a bunch of dummies, gunning down as many people as possible and then getting killed. And you'll go in, and I mean, that is no exaggeration. I save these scoreboards because I'll be like 20-4. And the rest of the team has died 96 of 100 times. You know, and it's like, they're like 30-25. Or they're like 20-28. And I've died 4 times. And they are still, I will be like bottom on the scoreboard while they're all running around doing that. And that's a public match, whatever. I basically, I won't be rude. You know, you can't take it very seriously. So, whatever the case, in Ground War, to my knowledge, you have a
Next hard point,
still
let's go.
100 millisecond baseline delay even on the absolute best of connections, which means that 100, 200, I'm getting killed by an MP5 by the time the bullets hit. This is just the absurdity of this. In ground war on 20 hertz, when they begin shooting at me, seeing me at this position on my screen, and I am actually over here by 100 milliseconds, by the time their bullets begin to hit me with their tracer will be showing over here to the side. By the time their bullets hit me at 200 milliseconds distance,
Get ready, we're about to move.
they should have on their end, hopefully, seen me update from here to here. But since I may not have even seen them shooting at me,
Get to the
I'm
hard
over
point,
here.
move.
I'm dead. I am already dead. I have literally just been killed by a 150 millisecond TTK gun and am not even receiving the bullets yet. If I did not see them, and I am here, I'm 100 milliseconds this way in ground war. They now see me, I don't see them, and they're shooting me back here. I'm still receiving no bullets. I go up 100 more milliseconds. They now see me halfway between the positions while I'm not seeing them. I'm dead.
10 seconds.
I
Get
was
ready to
never
move.
there to begin with. It's just insane. And they will never see that on their screen. When you go into a game, and I'm just going to lay it on people. People
get
don't
to the
want to
next
know
one.
this. When you go into a game and you begin firing on someone and they are doing absolutely nothing, guess what? They weren't even receiving half the bullets yet. So, I just, you cannot, people, as soon as anybody watches this video or anybody who says this, they're going to try and argue it and say, well, this, that, and that. You cannot argue with the fact that a 30
10 seconds.
ping
Get ready to move.
with a 60 round trip back tested over and over and over on high frequency equipment
Go. Get
to
to the
be
next
that
one.
exact delay. You can't change the fact that when the servers were turned down in frequency to 20 because of the number of people in a game, that on high frequency equipment tested by multiple parties, it showed this 100 and 200 millisecond delay as a baseline. You can't, no matter what you want to do, that's what it did. The numbers are right there. And the thing with this, and really my point, is that there is a definitive, nearly one-to-one connection between this
10
kind of
seconds.
junk
Get ready to move.
and the server hertz. Valorant is running at 128 hertz, as far as I know, on Amazon Accelerator Network.
Next hard point.
I
Let's
don't
go.
think it ever goes lower than that. And when Valorant was tested, it was definitively essentially zero overhead. Whatever your ping is to the server, that is your delay. Whatever the cumulative pings back and forth are between the people, that is the delay. On that 128 hertz, there is effectively no server overhead. And in fact, some of the tests, it was like it was less. I don't know. They may be using some kind of listening server authentication system, some kind of player-to-player relay to speed it up. I just don't know. That's possible without going through the main central server.
10
Whatever
seconds.
the case,
Get ready to move.
there you go. You're looking at being dead to in ground war, being dead to a gun before in a place you weren't, you killed by a gun in a place that you aren't before you even know it happened. You are literally dead. You're over halfway dead before you could ever even see them firing, regardless of where you were. And you are fully dead if you didn't see anything. You're fully dead, and you were nowhere even near it. So that's awful. And the 60 hertz isn't quite as bad, but on 60, when you go to move here and then receive the gunfire here at 120, you're 2/3 dead. You're 2/3 dead instead of 133% dead.
10 seconds. Get ready to move.
The solution is 128 hertz servers. As far as I know, Battlefield Incursions, which was a test environment, Battlefield 1 Incursions, which was a test environment few years ago, like 4 years ago, 3 years ago, was running at 120 hertz for console people. I think for somebody it was. At PC, definitively, console, I think it was running at 120 hertz. You get the servers, if you get the server cycle at 128, you have effectively no delay other than the actual travel time, whatever you can get the travel time down to. The next thing is to get the frame rate up. Even if the display won't do it, get the frame rate up. Because regardless of if my display can show me the 60 or 144 or 240, if the system can actually update it and keep track of it before the printout to my display, then when I'm going to shoot, the bullets will hit.
Get to the next one.
So higher server cycling, higher frame rates, and that just gets into the dumbness of console. Because if you can barely even aim at a simple bullseye using a controller the way you can with a mouse, and you have the precision to aim at 120 points along the same, 140 points, 128 to 144 points along the same path with a mouse, how much more accurate is that? All of that is going to come down to this window. This window right here should be 1,000 milliseconds. Oh, and again, I'll trace down. So 1,000 milliseconds on ground war means
10
that...
seconds. Get ready to move.
Get space here. 1,000 milliseconds on ground war is going to be this much discrepancy.
Go. Get to the next one.
You're dead before anything even happened. You weren't standing there. You never had any indication that anything was happening, and you're now dead. If you reduce it down, if that's... you can actually do the meters here. 27 down to 21. Okay, so I'm going to back up 3.5. Okay, that should be basically it. It's hard to do this. I don't want to take a whole long time. Okay, so this should be that's 1,000 milliseconds. This is 500 milliseconds, 250 milliseconds.
Stand by to move.
The baseline delay in ground war was 200, and in the regular one, I'm at 500. Well, I should just
Next hard point. Let's go.
Where's that? I'm going to go ahead and do a colored marker here. Okay, 1,000 milliseconds, 68. This should be about 61. Okay, so 7, going to back it up 3.5. Should be 64.5. Okay, so right about in here. That should be 500 milliseconds. This should be 250 milliseconds. And this should be 125 milliseconds. Okay, so absolute apparently best
Stand by to move.
possible tested fiber ping in ground war. You are getting killed by an MP5 right here when you are nowhere near there,
Next hard point,
had
let's
no
go.
idea what was happening, and the gunfire just started hitting. You're already dead. The system is already calculating that you were hit on shooter's advantage lag compensation, standing, beginning right here, terminating in here. You're in fact standing here. The bullets are just now coming in. You're dead. And that's how super bullets happen, or part of how super bullets happen. I don't think they're really doing super bullets. I got super bulleted the other day, and I saved a video of it from an MP5. But that was on some kind of bizarre packet issue. But you're dead. You aren't there. By the absolute best possible ping, possibly in the regular multiplayer.
Stand by to move.
You are now 2/3 dead, standing here. You're at 120 milliseconds. You were
Get to the
shot
hard
here.
point. Move.
You're 2/3 dead here when the bullets come through. So, as minute as this may look, on the absolute theoretical best possible connection, as you ran from here to here, you were actually shot and hit here. You're 2/3 dead by the time the bullets come through. What that means is you were trying to round this corner, and they shot you right here, and you didn't even see them there. You're already 2/3 dead by the time the bullets hit past this corner. That
10
is on
seconds.
the
Get ready to
absolute
move.
best possible connection. As soon as the ping goes up to, when you see in the lobby it says 90 millisecond ping instead of a 30 millisecond ping, I'm not sure what kind of
to the hard point.
mishmash
Move.
stuff they're doing, but because this delay is based on any of the parties involved versus the other parties and the server, when it says 90, that's 3 times this 30 one right here. I don't know if it's effectively realistically turning into that, but you're then saying that distance on a 90 millisecond RTT ping, my game doesn't say that, but it doesn't matter if mine says that, because if the lobby says that, supposedly somebody in the lobby is going up that high.
10 seconds. Get ready to move.
That would be 2 times, 3 times. You're now up to here. You're now dead.
Next hard point. Let's go.
No, you never even knew anything was happening. You're dead. So, whatever the case, that was my point for today's wonderful, lovely video. I don't personally know that I can take much more of Call of Duty. I got they have put a again, it's not just them. The Battlefield 5 has problems, but the Battlefield games have intermittently put in caps. The cap says that if your ping goes up above like 150, that it stops doing this kind of stuff. I don't know. I don't even know how effective that is now. Battlefield 5 seems to be a mess, but I've really been enjoying it. But the new thing that is just absurd in freaking... The new thing that's absurd...
10 seconds. Get ready to move.
Oh, I will show this while I'm here. The new thing that's absurd is that it turns out that the tracker perk that is has always been countered by cold-blooded.
Next hard
This
point.
year,
Let's go.
every other thing in the game was messed up, and you couldn't trust any of the perk listings. So, like, they have, just a second. I have to do something for a second. Be right back. The weapon stats taking that MP5 for example, the weapon stats clearly have two
10
different
seconds.
categories
Get ready to move.
that are listed for range versus actual damage. The range on a gun affected the fall off of the damage over
Next hard
distances,
point. Let's go.
but not the baseline damage of the gun. Whereas something like stopping power or different ammunition that said damage actually increased the hit points of damage. If you're against somebody with 150 health and you took a gun, something that increased the gun's damage, when you shot them, instead of doing 24 or 26 or 52 damage, it bumped it up by like 5, 10, whatever on the damage points. The MP5 had those 10, the most popular gun in the game that all the pros use, had a 10 millimeter ammunition that said that increased damage, but was proven over and over and over to have nothing to do with the damage points, whatever, and was actually the range on it. It kept a higher value at range. So when the game said that when the game didn't have things listed that you would expect to be listed, you didn't know if it was real or not. Well, when it didn't have a counter for tracker, the footprint thing listed, it's always been cold-blooded. I don't use it. I think it's cheap. I think it's basically cheating. I think it's just dumb. But it's always been countered by cold-blooded. Well, as it turns out, tracker, if this is 1 second's distance, tracker does 8, possibly more seconds of tracking across this space. I think at full run, it does it for 8 seconds. So this distance times 8. I better just do the clock and not estimate this. In fact, I'm just going to start back here. If I'm going to get stupid with it, I'll just start back the other side of the map.
Go. Get to the next one.
Okay. I'm going to start it at 50 and go down to 42. From here to back there is apparently being traced by tracker in any mode, including standard battle royale, solos, trios, quads, with no counter whatsoever. Just look at this distance. You can be stalked from there to here by somebody behind you or on a building top in Warzone and never know it with no counter whatsoever. I went in for the first time in like a week, and my god-awful as it may be, the standard Warzone gulag and everything have been so awful that I just feel like I'm wasting my time with them, that it's not as bad as it was at the launch. I don't want to put the amount of time in solo, specifically solo. If I have people to play with, I play. But I don't want to play the solo battle royale because I just don't think that it's worth my time. It's okay, but what would happen would be I would put 30 minutes at a time in for a match and then have some guy drop in from nowhere on like a 1 second or less warning. It'll say enemy incoming or whatever it says when they're coming in from the air, and then they're right there.
Get ready. We're about to move.
It's like when you play multiplayer and all of a sudden a cruise missile hits you that was never announced. I guess there's a delay in the aerial redeploys in the Battle Royale.
Next hard point, let's go.
Or I would be somewhere at like the hospital and there's no sound of anybody anywhere. And all of a sudden I'm rocket launched, dead, from somebody jumping down from a roof. Or like I would be... I mean, I just don't know. It's just all so stupid. I can't take it. You get somewhere and you need to get a crate, and it's like up on some floor that they made specifically that you can't get up to without climbing through a maze. And when I needed to, I would go through and attempt to do it, even though I really had no time for it, and somebody would be like stalking me the whole time. It's just boring. And like,
Get ready. We're about to move.
you know, I wrote them for like months and said, can we not just please get grappling hooks? Make them realistic. I used to play Battlefield Hardline, and like it had these awesome grappling things that were like pretty realistic. They're kind of slow. You had to actually set them up. They weren't like the ones from Black Ops 4, which were, you know, whatever. It was a high-speed game. So instead, they come out and they put those like zip lines, and now like you can watch. No offense, you can watch Iron, who's the #1 in the world. What's their first thing to do? They go to camp and they set up multiple explosives on top of the zip line. That defeats the entire point of the stupid goddamn grappling hook. I just can't take it. It's so retarded. It like nobody feels like doing all that. I mean, I can understand a place for it, but when you have a limited circle
Stand by to move.
and a rush and a time, and people are trying to like play for action, and you literally are redeploying people from the air to the top of the stupid goddamn building after they lost their gunfights, and you can't get up to the damn buildings, and then the only thing they put in, even after all that, was the stupid stationary zip lines that the #1 people in the world, their first thing to do is plant multiple explosives on anything to stay on top of the building. I mean, sure, I understand that. That's a perfectly legitimate military tactic. But the entire point of wanting a grappling tool was for them not to know where you were, be able to get up to the top of something, and be more mobile. It was just mobility. Nobody wants to be stuck. I've gone through times where an advanced UAV came in and looked at the map, including in ground war. And like,
to move.
everybody is in these dumb buildings. I mean, there are some people, but like 80% of the people were just in buildings, like just hanging out at windows. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is just
Get to the hard point. Move.
dumb. And so, like, you know, whatever. But I don't feel that the solo is worth the amount of time and energy that we're going into it, given the stupidity of the things that they put in it. From akimbo Renettis, I guess that was, to six-pack RPGs, to launchers from the air, to redeploys to rooftops, to everybody camping with stuff that you couldn't, like, find with anything, to, oh my gosh, the worst was the broken heartbeat sensor. Here I am doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and I show up with another guy in the war zone, and we're both heartbeat censoring each other. I had cold-blooded and ghost on, and he has me right there at the definitive meters on the thing beeping and kills me. It's broken. It's just plain broken. There's nobody else anywhere around. It was specifically me. You can see it on the camera. It's reported by like hundreds of people. And now Tracker, there is no counter to. Nothing counters Tracker. So who knows how many times I've been being tracked by somebody and didn't see a camera or anything and had no idea that they're getting some freebie frickin' tracker that there's nothing to block. So I went to play Plunder yesterday. Again, this point is I play Plunder because I don't feel like investing that much time and energy into it. It literally is just a frustrating headache. And the frickin' I went to do a contract and was doing fine over in frickin' the quarry, and I hear footsteps, which is a goddamn miracle because this game's audio has to be the worst thing of fucking all time.
Get ready. We're about to move.
All this stuff, I guess they just got lazy. Like, the audio was really loud when it released, and people complained and called it sound whoring because people were just like, say, like, hiding over behind this box like this, waiting to hear sounds.
Get to the next one.
And so they turned the volume down, and I guess they just kept it down in Warzone. The stuff they do makes no sense. Like, in Warzone, you can fall like 2 stories, and then you get into ground war and try to jump off something, and you're dead. It's not this height. Like, this height, you can pretty much live anywhere. But, like, stuff in Warzone, ground war, where you try to do stuff, and it kills you. Or even in multiplayer. Like, there's that, whatever that is, that Maza or whatever, where like if you jump from too high, it kills you, and it doesn't do that in the other modes. I mean, like, whatever, but like they freaking
Stand by to move.
So the audio is just horrible. You're like standing, like you're somewhere and there's like nobody anywhere, and you should be able to hear something. Any normal person knows you should be able to hear something, and there's absolutely nothing. And here they come, and there's no dead silence. You're dead, and you're like, what in the hell was that? I mean, like 200 top tier streamers have noticed this. I don't think there's anybody in the Call of Duty community who has not noticed how awful the sound is in Warzone. But like, so I just don't feel like it. And they, the freaking like the, and I say that as somebody who plays. I mean, I put like close to 30 days of playtime into this dumb game this year. Last year, I maximum prestige 2 consoles with Black Ops 4. I streamed League play whenever I got a chance. I was like top of the board constantly on League play. I would go in and 1v6 on Search and Destroy. I was doing really well. And like they, you know, whatever.
Go, get to the next one.
I just don't even care anymore. This year is so bad that I just could care less. And so like they, you know, whatever. But I went to play Plunder and I was doing fine, and I'm in the quarry and I hear some noise, which was a miracle, and I went, okay. And at that moment, I made a decision to go with everybody on the not being boring thing and actually push and be aggressive more than like, you know, going, oh, well, I'm gonna just go, I'll go here. You know, I try to play it. I went ahead and I went with everybody and said, nah, yeah, let's see what we can do. It's a game. Let's try and be like. I mean, I understand. I have camped plenty of times, but like, I'm like, no. So I'm just gonna go ahead and challenge somebody. I heard some footsteps and I'm like checking some stuff. Here he comes, tippy toeing, and he's watching tracker footprints, and he's following me around a couple things silently tippy toeing, and it pops out. Break. So I nearly uninstalled the game. I was like, this is just, it's Call of Duty Champs Weekend. I'm about ready to uninstall the damn thing. But whatever. The guns in this game were incredible. The graphics are incredible. There's tons of cool stuff. But the packet issues, the delay, the servers, the horrible things they put in, you know, whatever. It looks like Call of Duty Champs will be good this weekend, next weekend. Alright, if anybody happens to see it, that was my input. You're getting killed in ground war before you even knew anything was happening. You're dead before, I mean, you're 2/3 dead before the gun even fires on your screen. Literally, you are 2/3 dead in ground war before the gun has even fired on your screen. And if you think I'm joking, you go watch a video from Drifter running at somebody even 10 years ago. 10 years ago this was happening. 10 years ago, you would be running. Here comes somebody with a shotgun. You see them, bam! Guess what? None of it hits. You're dead. You're blown back. You see their camera. They did the exact same thing. They ran around, saw you, pulled up. You weren't doing a damn thing. Bam! But somehow, they gave it to the other guy. Your hits never registered. And the two cameras are completely incongruent. Both of them show the other person not even seeing the other person. So it's real. And I'm saying, when you're right here in ground war, you are 2/3 dead before the gun has even fired
10 seconds,
on your system.
ready to move.
And you are 133% dead by the time you're in the receiving position. You are 133% dead by the time the bullets are coming in. That's insane. All right. Heading on out.